Switching gears, heading over to the other side of the NBA, to the Western Conference, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, X factor for playoff teams, Jalen Williams, for sure. Shout out to my guy J Dub. Unfortunately, right now he's dealing with another injury. Obviously, the beginning of the year, there was a lot of talk about his wrist and still not being 100% from it. And we've kind of seen that throughout the course of the season. His shooting has not been the same as last year. You have to, kind of assume that that is playing a part to the wrist surgery. But now, again, obviously dealing with the hamstring injury, soft tissue injury. This team is this team is obviously different without him. And as good as they are, I do believe that they need J Dub, right? The last playoff run that they had to win a championship showed that a 40-point game in the NBA Finals, something that will be remembered for a long time. It's important that they have him, and not only have him, but have him back in time and feeling somewhat close to 100% of himself, because he just gives them an entirely different look offensively. This is an all NBA and all defensive guy as well. So you want to be able to have that on the floor close to 100%. And last game in February 11th, right before the All Star break, the guy had 28 points in 20 minutes. This is somebody, again, that you want on the floor, you want close to 100%. And I think they're going to need him. The Western Conference looks like they've gotten a lot better. It feels like the competition level in this playoffs will be higher. And don't get me wrong, the Thunder are still the top dog and the favorites as of now. But with all of the injuries they've dealt with, and even currently dealing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being hurt with an abdominal or core injury, you know, um, he might need a little bit more help than what he's gotten throughout the course of this season. And so I take all of those things into consideration, and it makes me point out J Dub being their X factor. But it says a lot about the Thunder, right? I just talked about how he's missed time. Chet and Ihart have missed some time. Shea has missed time. They're still the number one team. You know what I mean? So that just speaks to how good they are and how good they potentially can be. The second team out west, the San Antonio Spurs. Another one of those teams where the X factor could be so many different people for so many different reasons. And if anybody has a different answer than me, I would not be mad at you at all. For a while, a lot of the consideration went to Stefan Castle. And even now, when I'm here, I feel like I want to switch gears and go back to Stefan Castle. I ended up on Julian Champagnie because role players mean so much in playoff series. This team is super young. This is going to be a new stage for majority of the players here. I think you might have Fox and Barnes as the guys who had, and Cornette with somewhat playoff experience. But Julian Champagnie is so instrumental to this team for what he's able to do as a shooter and even as a rebounder, a guy that doesn't need the ball, a guy that makes very few and little mistakes, also has really good positional size to be versatile. And again, I just think having somebody like him with his shooting ability on the floor with Wemby, trying to give him as much room and space to operate, because a lot of teams in the playoffs are going to try to shrink up the floor and allow Vic to see bodies. So it's going to be very important for the Spurs to be able to knock down shots and have shooters around him. And that's where Stephon Castle is going to be a big X factor as well. His offensive game, not allowing teams to take him out of series from a defensive standpoint, and then also him bringing his defensive impact on the opposite side of the floor. But I do think Julian Champagnie is going to be a guy that can change a lot of this by making sure he's that shot maker that he's been all year in a lot of those playoff series. So shout out to my guy Julian Champagnie, one of my guys that was on my what do you call that? He was on my sleepers list heading into the draft. He was one of the five guys that I mentioned. So shout out to Julian Champagnie. I love to see what he's been able to do for himself. For the Denver Nuggets, another team with championship aspirations, a team that I am kind of leaning towards as my favorite. I spoke so highly about the Spurs all year long, and I was one of the first people on this show and on my platform to say that, hey, I don't care what y'all talking about with age. This team is legit. I was saying that before Fox came back from his injury at the start of the season, and to see what they've been able to turn that into and how they've been able to build on that is crazy. And so I'm still kind of Spurs, but I look at the Nuggets on some nights and like, man, Jokic is still a problem, and they have so much going on. But their X factor for me, Peyton Watson. He's had a really good season. Super proud of what he's been able to do. Um, he's currently another guy that's dealing with a hamstring injury. They also have missed Aaron Gordon, who's dealing with the lingering hamstring injury. Um, and because of that, if he's not going to be fully himself, I could see the responsibility from Peyton Watson kinda, growing a little bit. The other part for me is this is really a breakout year for Peyton Watson, and one of the question marks around him has been his offensive, punch and his shooting ability. He's always been the defender for them, but can he bring enough offensively to continue to stay on the floor? And so far, he's done a really good job of that. But these playoffs are going to expose if that's a hot shooting start to the year or just one of those hot years, or has he turned the corner to be this level of an offensive player? And because you have Jokic, because you have Jamal Murray, um, there are going to be teams that are going to say, we're living with Peyton Watson. And I think it's going to be up to him, kind of like what Aaron Gordon did last year. It's going to be up to him to make teams pay. And if he's able to do that while they have Aaron Gordon, while they have Cam Johnson, hell, Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to be able to knock down shots. It's only going to make them more of a problem, and it's going to allow him to be on the floor for them because one thing that they have struggled with throughout the course of the regular season is defense, and he's the one guy that brings you that. And when you start talking about playing against the Shays, the Lukas, the Kevin Durant's, and all of these offensive stars that could be on their path towards another championship, you want Peyton Watson to take on a lot of those assignments. And, he can only do that by making sure he's a factor on the offensive end. So Peyton Watson will be my X factor for the Nuggets. I'm not mad at anybody that has Aaron Gordon due to all of the injuries that he's faced this year. I'm not mad at anybody that has maybe Christian Brown, and I'm also not mad at anybody that might have like Cam Johnson, right? Because Cam Johnson making shots this year versus not making shots obviously plays a big part to the Nuggets and their success. Houston, another young player. Again, sometimes I feel it ain't fair to let the young player be the X factor, but since he's not a rookie like CMB, it feels a little bit better. But the Rockets, Reed, Sheppard. Um, the Rockets are in a weird spot. They are a team that I was so excited for coming into the year because I thought low key contender. You add that Kevin Durant to a team that was super good last year, that was a second seed. They have this infrastructure, they have youth, they have defense, they have size, and then they lose Fred, and they haven't really been able to fill that void from a guard perspective. Reed Sheppard gives you that. He's not Fred VanVleet, but he's another shot maker that they have that can help them because the shooting for them is just really questionable outside of Kevin Durant and I guess Jabari. You have a lot of questionable shooting. Tari Eason has shot the ball really, really, really well as well. But now you don't also have Steven Adams, and that was a big part of their identity as an offensive rebounding team that just overpowered you and overwhelmed you on the glass and got second, third, fourth chance opportunities. You now don't have that, right? One of the best in the league at that. You're going to need some shooting to kind of alleviate some of the ways that teams are going to guard you, right? We've already seen a glimpse of teams just completely ignoring Amin Thompson as a perimeter option, and that only crowds the paint and the space for Sengun and Kevin Durant. And I think again, Reed Sheppard is one of those guys to alleviate that. He's got to gain some more trust from Ime. But I do love some of the performance he's given them this year with his shot making. He's a defensive playmaker who can be disruptive at times. And I think the quicker he's able to step into his role of whatever it's going to be, the better this team futures looks. Reed Sheppard is a guy that I think is going to be a big time contributor for the Rockets. It's just about getting that experience, getting that trust from the coaching staff, and having those moments that is like I'm here, right? Those arrival moments, and I'm hoping that he can have one or two of those in this playoff run for the Rockets. The Los Angeles Lakers, a tough team to talk about. I said this on Numbers on the Board. They're one of those teams where it feels like their role players, you just kind of fantasize or wish that you could combine them, right? So like Jared Vanderbilt and Rui Hachimura, if that could combine into a role player, that would be dope. Luke Kennard shooting and Marcus Smart defense combined would be a great role player. Aiton and his size and some of his skill with the motor of Jackson Hayes would be a really good starting center for them. That made my X factor be Marcus Smart. This team has glaring issues defensively. And again, like I talked about with the Nuggets, any team in the Western Conference that's trying to go on a run, you're going to have some crazy superstar talent that you're going to face. Marcus Smart gives you that defense. He's the X factor because they're going to need him to make shots to be an offensive factor. And his experience, his heart and soul, his toughness, it's going to be very, very big for them. And he's a guy that has some of that winning experience. So Marcus Smart, X factor for the Lakers. And then to wrap things up, Dante DiVincenzo is my X factor for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We saw what he was able to do for my Knicks a few years ago. His shot making, his defense, when he's on the floor, the Minnesota Timberwolves are just a rock star team. And I believe they have some things that could have them go on another run to the conference finals or even beyond. And him in that backcourt with Anthony Edwards having a career year in assists, he makes some things click for them. Those are our Western Conference playoff X factors. We will be back with more talk and college basketball talk with producer Christian after this break.
Hit subscribe for more news, highlights, and analysis from the NBA on NBC.